What's up, guys, and welcome to the Editing Bard, the channel that brings you writing tips that make sense. I am super excited for today, doing the second opening paragraph live critique for authors like yourself. So we have 4 people this time around, and I was so excited to be able to do this. I try and aim for 5, but I managed to get one person at the last minute, so it is going to be golden today. I'm also going to be doing the opening line for a published book by a well-known author to kind of give you guys an example of what can hook in a reader right away. And also, as the little, ticker passes by this way, if you guys haven't already checked it out, my coffee has worn out. I apologize. It's going to be total and utter chaos today. I have a free writing template down in the show notes, along with a link to the form. So if you would like to have your story reviewed, your opening paragraph, and by opening paragraph, I mean if it's just like, if you have one line, like just go by like 75 to 100 words, like do that. That'd be awesome. That is also down below. So if you guys want to see that, fill it out. Do it. All right. The Dancing Bard S. Welcome, Lauren. Whoop, whoop. The Bearded Genius. Hashtag everything is chaos. Yes, I definitely agree. Everything is chaos. Welcome, Heather. Hey, Dal. Glad you all have been able to join in. So I'm super excited. The last one of these actually went really, really well, and you all wanted me to do it again, so I decided to go ahead and do it. I'll probably do these like once a month. I think that's going to be kind of like a nice, gives me enough time to collect entries in to do this and kind of prepare the slides and all that kind of stuff to make it look really nice. I wanted to present your guys' work as well or as best as I can. I'm split screened and working. Shh, I won't tell anyone. I promise. All right. So I am going to go ahead and dive into the first one, and it'll take me just a second here to open the screen share. And okay, wait, I got to do this. Oh no, hold on. We're getting there. This one. Yeah. Okay. I really don't want to be in full screen. That does not actually work for me. So let me see if I can get this a little bit more blown. It stopped it. Guys, this is why I can't have nice things. I try and do something and it just refuses to do it. Okay. You guys can't see it. It worked better with Canva. I may have to go back to trying Canva at some point. Let me see if I can just simply... That didn't do it. What in tarnation, guys? Hey, Ash. Welcome to the madness. There's madness ensuing here. Things are happening. Trying to present, and it's just not doing it the way that I want it to, where it doesn't actually take me out to a full freaking screen. But okay, so I have presented full screen. Oh, there we go. Haha. All right, now we are in business now, guys. Okay, so now that we have managed to fix this, we are going to dive in to Lauren's. So hers is bad things don't normally happen in small towns. Oh, don't they though? Small towns are for leading quiet lives in rural ambiguity and collecting friends like trinkets to display among dust-ridden shelves. There is quite a nobility in leading simple lives, small enough that neighbors became friends who sometimes became family. The inhabitants of these places are like magpies, hoarding every shiny memory in trite accolade in greedy splendor. Bad things don't normally happen in small towns. They don't happen here, or they didn't. Okay, so, hey, Burrito, welcome. Well, I am glad that you are here. You can't see my face. There it is. I'm thumbs upping you, Burrito. All right. Lauren says it's the first draft and I haven't written much more of it yet. Let the tweaking begin. Exactly. Welcome, Linda. So, first off, the imagery in here is really very beautiful. You're touching on a lot of different things. With small towns, quiet and rural lives, collecting friends, to kind of display the quiet nobility, leading simple lives and lives small enough that neighbors became friends who sometimes became family. As I live in a small town, I agree with this. We just moved here, but this is absolutely very much in line with kind of what it's like. They are like magpies, hoarding every shiny memory in trite accolade and greedy splendor. Again, very on point with that. The one thing that comes to mind is there, because it is kind of densely worded, it feels a little heavy. So it feels heavy in just some of the phrasing, and that doesn't make it bad. It just means it's just something to be aware of. And just so that what you guys know, there is a second paragraph to this that I just didn't pull out because I thought that "or they didn't" was a great cliffhanger for you all. And now you can all peer pressure Lauren into continuing to write the rest of her story. But yeah, I think that one of the things that I stumble over is the repetitive use of small towns, especially small towns back to back. That's one of the things. And then it's also repeated again. And yes, hashtag peer pressure. Yeah, everybody just feel free to pigpile on Lauren and peer pressure into finishing this. So the small town, the repetitive aspect of that, and this is honestly something that is more of a pet peeve of mine, and it's stuff that honestly that I see in other writing. What I try and suggest to clients and to students of mine is that you create the illusion of variety. And when you have small towns and small towns back to back like that, what ends up happening is you're creating an echo, and it's repeating, and people pick up on those repetitions, and it may annoy them sometimes. They may not care, but that's something that I in particular look out for when I'm doing edits. Is I look for those repetitions in close proximity to each other so that you can create that illusion of variety. And so instead of small towns, like what would be a different word for small towns that you use? Could it be rural communities? the boonies. I mean, it just kind of depends. But yeah, those are some things to kind of keep in mind. The other part with the kind of the heaviness that it stems from is all of kind of the this and that, quiet nobility and leading a simple life, small enough that neighbors became friends who sometimes became family. I like that. I probably wouldn't remove that. The rural and beginning collecting friends like trinkets to display among dust-ridden shelves. That is a little bit wordy, and so it slows it down a little bit while we read. And then down below, the inhabitants of these places are like magpies hoarding every shiny and trite accolade in greedy splendor. I like that. And that actually flows a little bit better than the trinket one up above. So if there was one that I would cut because it slows down the flow, it would actually probably be that second sentence in the paragraph. The small towns are for leading quiet lives in rural ambiguity. And then I would maybe reframe that and reuse that because I like aspects of it. The way it's currently phrased is just a little bit heavy, and it slows down the reading there. And then the bad things don't happen in small towns. They don't happen here. I also don't know whether we're in a narrator's point of view or in a character's point of view. And so there is some context here that is missing at this point, and so I can't speak to a lot of that. But the bad things that don't happen, or bad things don't happen in small towns. They don't happen here, or they didn't. That part just is that transition there is a little bit clunky because it's repeating. I like that you circle back around to the bad things don't happen in small towns. I would almost do another paragraph that talks about why bad things don't happen in small towns and why specifically they don't happen here, because it's kind of filling in that context. Like, so we know that bad things don't happen in small towns. You could put, bad things don't happen here, and you kind of list out like the reasons, very similar to how you've done with the kind of broader subject, and then, or at least they didn't at the end of that, because I think that has a little bit better flow, and it's making two distinctions. There's bad things don't happen in small towns overall, bad things don't happen here, and then you explain why, and then you go to, or at least they didn't. And that's probably how I would structure it. Overall, though, it's engaging and it immediately piques my interest. Like I said, for you guys, there's another paragraph that kind of fills in a little bit more. Just this paragraph, though, I'd be really interested, simply because of the style, the voice style, the way that it's phrased, the imagery that it kind of evokes is most definitely, it would be added to my reading list for sure. So really good job, Lauren. Okay, let's hop over to the comments. Let's see here. Your formal peer pressure is noted and filed away appropriately. Expect a response in 36 months. That's fair. That is fair. The boonies. Yeah, just totally use the boonies. I mean, where I live out in Eastern Oregon, I mean, the boonies, I mean, that is how you qualify some places, is that they're out in, they're in the boonies. They're middle of nowhere. Let's see. I'm missing a comment. That's weird. Oh, there it is. Bad things didn't happen in small towns, and they certainly didn't happen here until now. And then you add dun, dun, dun. Yep. Dancing Bardis is also doing ghostwriting now. And so you can hire her appropriately for, for all your copywriting needs. Let's see. If they are close enough, you can use you can use pronouns. Yeah. That's honestly how most of this stuff happens to me. It just magically pops into my head. And that's when the magic starts happening. Like, I literally, just as a very quick example for you guys, is that I was helping one of my clients, Lauren. Make sure, as a side note, just to take note of this, they take chocolate as payment. I was helping one of my students through the publisher, and she was like, I don't know what to name the book. I want it to maybe be a trilogy. And then, like, the more we talked, the more I started just getting going. I literally mapped out the entire trilogy for her in about 15 minutes, maybe 10. And the little bit of angst that they had added, I basically they were like, just a little bit. I'm like, no, watch. Boop. And just all of it. I'm really good at writing angst, not like Twilight angst, because no one wants that. That's it makes you feel gross. You just feel dirty afterwards. This kind of angst is like the gut wrenching, like tear your heart apart, rip your soul out, beat it, and then shove it back in kind of angst. And it's probably why I think I've told you this before, but a lot of my readers, I'm pretty sure, are in therapy for this. There could be things happening. Who knows? Okay, I'm going to go to the next one. Oh, snap. Hang on. There's stuff happening. Let's see. I see it in the live chat, but it just takes, forever to get into. There we go. Okay. No, we like the character torture. Authors do, readers not so much. I agree. Us authors we revel in that kind of stuff. Which actually, that reminds me, as a side note, I took, well, at least for those of you who watched the fan fiction stream that I did on Saturday or have left comments on that, I was also peer pressured into making merch. So I have now become the glorious beginnings of the Editing Bard merch. And the first t-shirt that's going to be available is Overly Villainous Villain Who Revels in Villainy. So you guys can enjoy that. There's going to be a Stein mug that says Drink Like a Bard. The Dancing Bardist actually helped me with one of my concept ideas earlier. So there will be merch available eventually, pretty soon, actually. So if you guys want to wear awesome writing shirts that are kind of Bard themed or just fun, or have Bardisms, funny sayings that I have, those will be widely available for you to totally waste your money on and fund my coffee addiction. Just straight up, that's what it's probably going to go towards. Let's see, Lauren, why are we the same person though? I literally was talking to my husband when conceptualizing my debut, and he was like, how many books is that? Yeah. This is why I have 12. I have 12 planned just for the fantasy novel, because literally my brain thinks in series. It thinks in trilogies. I don't know if I will ever be able to write a standalone book. I will probably make a valiant attempt at it before my brain is just like plot bunnies for days. And yeah, and it's yeah, yes, I feel that a lot. Nice. You have another idea. Excellent. I shall add it to the merch store lineup. Have your beard on stuff, everyone. I am actually going to do a fantastic. I haven't figured out how yet, but it is going to happen. I'm trying not to get too sidetracked by this because I do want to focus on the opening paragraphs. But it is going to say your bearded muse. I am going, or bearded muse. I am going to have that in that lineup somewhere. I don't know how I can get just my beard onto the page. So if any of you know how I can do just that, I will see what I can do. Yes, Dal, the plot bunnies, they multiply. They just multiply all the time. Okay, I'm going to move to the next one before I get too horribly distracted. But just know, guys, that merch is on its way. It is going to be available fairly soon. Because actually, the Adorkable author actually helped point me towards Zazzle, which I didn't even know Zazzle was a thing, but they've pointed me towards Zazzle, and I've been doing that. Yes, actually, Lauren, this is going to be one of my shirts. I am going to have this as a shirt. You guys are giving me way too many ideas, and you're encouraging this. So, all right, I'm moving on to the next one before I lose track. Okay, here we go. This one is by Heather. So, Faye Price stepped over the threshold, slammed the door, and marched through the living room to the kitchen. Yes, I read that correctly. Okay. It wasn't until she was already in the kitchen that she realized there was something different. She looked around. Little pockets made of muslin. Is it muslin or muslin? I'm going to say muslin dotted the windowsills. More of Aunt Sully's star-shaped wreath-like decorations covered the doors and windows. In a corner of the kitchen sat a broom. Faye lifted her eyebrows, then shook herself. No getting distracted now. She needed to get this done. Then she would take a shower and relax. She stepped over to the sink and squirted soap into it, then turned the water on full blast to make bubbles. Nice. Yeah. Muslin. Okay. Sweet. This is why I have people like this in my life, is so that way they can help point these things out. Okay, so for this one, it is a little wordy and probably could be said in half the amount of words. Again, it's also there's the sentences are a little bit choppy, so you have a lot of short sentences kind of back to back. We also know that the character is in the kitchen, so you don't need to describe or say the kitchen again. And where is it? So you actually use kitchen 3 times in this. And so I would probably remove at minimum the middle kitchen. So the one, so you have slam the door, march through the living room to the kitchen. It wasn't until she was in the kitchen. That kitchen I would cut. You could also do Well, so look at it this way. I can't highlight it in presenter where it's at now. But essentially what you have going on here, and tell me if you guys, oh, nope. Oh, snap. Okay. Yeah. It won't let me do it. There you have too many short sentences until back to back. So what that does is that it disrupts a reading flow. You have to create a variety of sentences. Most of this could actually be fixed by just combining the sentences or just kind of rewording it a little bit. So for example, let's see here. It's much smaller on my screen when because I'm looking at it through. Okay, here we go. I'll just look at it full screen. So when you have the it's okay, Heather. Like seriously, like Mike, in the first draft of my novel, I used the character name like 8 times in like 3 paragraphs. So like don't feel bad. This is a very common thing. So for the I think what is confusing here, part of one of the things that's confusing is that when you started off in the second sentence, it wasn't until she was already in the kitchen that she realized there was something different. What was it that's different? There is nothing that indicates to me that something is different here. So she looked. So what? And I'm talking too fast. I need to slow it down. I'm stumbling over my own words. The part where she looked around, that is telling. It is a telling sentence because it is so short. If you said she looked around, noticing the little pockets made of muslin dotting the windowsills, that is more descriptive, and it is a little bit more, it's telling, but it's also doing a little bit of showing in that. I also don't know whether it's Aunt Sully or is supposed to be Aunt Sally. So that might just be a typo or a surname that I'm not aware of. So the star-shaped wreath-like decorations, those 2 hyphened words are a mouthful when you read it. So more of Aunt Sully's star-shaped wreath-like decorations covered the doors and windows. So you want to probably take one of those out and then add in a description after that. I'm trying to think of so you could say wreath-like decorations covered the doors and windows. They were a star-shaped pattern, and so you'd add it in a little bit. And also at the second fey, I would probably break it into another paragraph. I also don't know why there is attention called to the corner of the kitchen where the broom is sitting, or leaning or falling over or whatever. And so there's not a clear indication that what she's seeing is different, even though that up above, she realizes something was different about the kitchen. We don't know what that is specifically. It's too vague. If the star-shaped wreath-like decorations are on the doors and windows, what is there exactly that is different? Other than that, the fact there's more, because we have no context as the reader as to how many there were there before. Now, if you give some context for how many there were before and how many there are now, and a reason why it might be odd that there is more, then that makes a little bit more sense. And we have a little bit more context as the reader going, okay, what is it exactly that is going on? What is she seeing? What is she experiencing that is in fact different? Faye lifted her eyebrows. And then this again is one of those words that comes into play, and how you know you're falling into a strictly telling format is when you then shook herself. That is telling. You could say Faye lifted her eyebrows and shook the thoughts off. That is showing body language. Like, I like lifted her eyebrows. I would probably just go with lifted a brow. And then no getting distracted now. She needed to get this done. Get what done? Like, we don't know what it is that she needs to get done. And is it she's washing the dishes? That's what we can assume by the following sentence. And so then you give kind of a play-by-play into she went to the sink. Then she squirted soap into it. Then she turned the water on full blast to make bubbles. Then she probably scrubbed. So combining a lot of that can remove some of the more telling words and kind of showing. And what also makes it telling is that you start off with the she pronoun in back-to-back sentences. So you could remove the she from the final sentence and say, stepping over to the sink, she filled the sink with soap and water and began to scrub the dishes. So what you're doing is, this is where I'm talking about like the creating the illusion of variety. It's not that you've removed the pronoun. It's actually, you've just shifted it farther in. So it hides it. So it doesn't sound the same. Because if you have she, and trust me, I've done this. Some of my students in the through the publisher have done this, and I've talked with them about the same things. You don't always have to start off a sentence with the character's name. For example, the second Faye, she says, you could have, lifting a brow, Faye shook herself out of the stupor. It is creating an illusion. You don't want readers to fall into the pattern of knowing that at the beginning of every sentence is going to be Faye or a pronoun. You want to switch it up. Start off with body language, switch it up with dialogue, those kinds of things. You could have no getting distracted now. I would turn that into dialogue. I would slap some quotation marks on there, and because what that does is that it gets us into the character's head. We hear from them. Some of this you could actually, not in this case, but in some cases, when you find yourself telling, if you actually put some of that description in dialogue, this is easier between two characters. Then that actually removes a lot of the work that you have to do, because it's coming from the character's point of view, and a lot of what they are being describing can be implied through the dialogue. Okay, I gotta check comments here because I've seen them has been blowing up on the side. Let's see. I'm not worried about typos. Oh man. Looks like I'm gonna have a sidekick for joining my streams. You come to me for the advice, and you come to her for it to be rewritten. Yeah, again. Oh, I actually already commented on that. Yeah, sentence length. This is a tricky one. It honestly really is tricky. Because with sentence length, there is an ebb and flow and a rhythm to it, right? And this comes down to the creating the illusion of variety. So you don't want to have short sentence, short sentence, short sentence, short sentence, short sentence. You want to have short sentence, longer sentence, short sentence, or two longer sentences and one short sentence at the beginning, creating the illusion. You find a rhythm, and it becomes a almost a tactile feeling that you get when you're reading the sentences, and you can kind of see where they can kind of mold and mesh and kind of come together. And so that's, for example, like paragraph length. Most people have a hard time knowing when to break a paragraph. And so the way that I try and help my clients and students is that when they're having troubles with paragraphs, I'm like, do anywhere between 75 and 100 words for a paragraph, or you go until you need to break it, or you switch thoughts. Like, that's essentially when you break a paragraph, is either you've reached the maximum amount or you start a new thought. Very rarely do I advise people to go to a full 120 words for a paragraph, because when you actually put that on paper, depending on the size of the book, that is going to be a very sizable block of text, and it's going to cause readers to want to skip or skim through it. I just finished Mary Shelley's Frankenstein a couple weeks back, and there were some paragraphs that were just obscenely long, and I was just like, oh my Lord. Lord of the Rings is that way as well. I went back, I opened it up, I was like, am I crazy? Well, no, that's not a good question. I already know I am. Like, but am I wrong in my thinking here? And I looked, and it was just this sizable block of text that took up like half a page. And I was like, oh, yes. No wonder the Council of Elrond took 1,000,000 years to get through. All right, have fun, Lauren. Yes, I will most definitely. Excellent. Yes, I will most definitely reach out to you about the collab. I think that'll be a lot of fun. Let's see. So Dancing Bardis, Faye Price stepped over the threshold, slamming the door behind her. Marching into the kitchen, she paused in the doorway, glancing around the room. Yeah, that's a great example. You've taken a lot of that, you've condensed it, you reapplied it, and yeah. Okay, slowly. Perfect. Yeah, a good description about the window. Star-shaped wreaths decorated. Yeah. Yeah. These are really good suggestions. Yeah, I agree. It needs to be broken up. I personally would break it up at the second Fae. Oh, okay. I gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Totally makes sense. Okay. So I think I caught back up. Frankenstein, it was an interesting read. It was a very interesting read. I'll say that. it was interesting. I enjoyed it. I didn't really like Frankenstein so much. I actually liked the monster the most. The 4-chapter long monologue was a little much, and I get that that's totally a different style thing than what we're used to. But my brain was just like, how is it possible to keep going for 4 chapters on just one thing? Okay, so Heather, that's probably what I would recommend. Again, oh, wait, there was comments that didn't show up. Oh, now they did. Now they showed up. Okay. Yeah, you could hint at the protective nature of them. For those, because I remember in the form you filled out, it was Celtic Fantasy, and I know that they have wards and stuff like that. So for those who are a little bit more familiar with Celtic Fantasy, they probably would recognize that. I would, however, call attention to it a little bit, because for those who are not familiar with the genre, they're not going to know. And so you definitely want to at least hint at that. Reading a book with this issue, she starts every other sentence. Yeah, you don't want to do that. You want to create the illusion of variety, even with character names. You want to do the same with character names. It doesn't have to be every single time. It's okay to have it back to back. Plenty of books do that. I'm reading a book right now called The Restorer, and they use but so much. And but is one of like my most hated words. And I blame my friend Mark Leanne for that. She broke me on that. Because many times an and could have been used and it actually would have made a stronger sentence. Which is why I'm usually saying cut the but. In this case, creating the illusion, starting off with the action rather than the pronoun can be a good way to go. Awesome. That is great. Yeah, but is one of those ones that, well, and see, the thing is that she is okay. She is one of those, if you can use it appropriately, just like with any word, it is an invisible word. The pronouns are invisible words, like said. If you can create that illusion of variety, no one is going to notice the repetitive nature. If, however, you put she at the beginning of every sentence, everyone is going to notice it. And it's going to call attention to itself. But in the middle of a sentence, it does not call attention to itself. We've learned that if it's capitalized, it has like a name, then it's like saying the name. But if it's in the middle of a sentence, it's not capitalized, it's an invisible word. So, I mean, you can get away with a lot more doing that. Visual stuff. Yeah. When to break paragraphs? Every 75 to 100 words. That's my general rule of thumb that I talk to people and teach people. 75 to 100 words. Sometimes you can break them, you can make them smaller, certainly. But 100 to 120, you're pushing it in terms of how blocky that's going to be in a book. It depends on the font size. It depends on the size pages. This size book, hold on. There we go. This size book versus this size book. Paragraphs are going to look completely different. 120 to Lord knows how many words in this is going to be considerably smaller in this one in terms of look. So that's why, as a general rule of thumb, I just try and err on about 100 words. Really, at 100 words, you're able to get in about as much as description before you start getting wordy. Oh, that reminds me, another t-shirt idea. Before it gets too far into just words for the sake of words and for word count. Okay. So in that case, you probably, I mean, some of it is still, I would probably rewrite. And honestly, like that first section up until the second Fae, I would probably keep as one paragraph. I would just rephrase and reword a lot of it in terms of just like the structure, because some of the things in there, it's all talking about the same subject. So I probably wouldn't break those up smaller until I got down to the second Fae. At the second Fae is when I would actually create a second paragraph. In any typical English class, you usually learn that paragraphs are thoughts. Each new paragraph is supposed to be a new thought or action. Right. And that is why I typically follow around the 75 to 100 word rule. It's not a rule. It's a guideline is really what it is. It's more of a set of guidelines than actual rules. That's how I do it. And I've been successful in doing it that way. And I actually got into the habit of doing it that way by writing on Wattpad, because I could tailor my paragraphs to evoke specific emotions within the reader, and they would click and they would comment and they would leave an inline comment on that paragraph. And so I've learned to work within those guidelines and have seen it be extremely successful. So when I post stuff like that, it allows me to tailor it a little bit more. Holy smokes, it jumped. Okay. Yes, Dal, I agree. The monster was way better than just Frankenstein. The best of that novel was the blind elder and how he never mistreated the monster. Blindness can be good. Yeah, I liked the interaction between the blind man and the monster. The Dancing Bardess does a lot of Celtic fantasy. You also have a Roman. I don't know what you comment in the chat what your book is, because it's Roman Celtic, but I don't know like a specific term. I don't know if it's actually Celtic fantasy or not. Let's see. Haven't even looked at the chapter. I know how that goes sometimes. Yeah, I that's how I try and roll too, unless I'm calling attention to the fact that it's still the person that I'm writing about. The Pirates of the Caribbean. I thought the fact that you when I go, yep, that's absolutely what I was thinking of. Anytime I say that, I usually will correct and do the Barbossa quote. It's more of a set of guidelines than actual rules. Roman Britain historical fiction that I am querying, and yes, that is what I was looking for. I knew it was in there. I just couldn't remember what genre it fell into. Historical fiction, which I have read part of it, guys, and it is pretty fantastic. Okay, going to move on to the next one, which is Dowls. Your time has come. Okay, I'm going to pull this up full screen on my end. So I walk along the lonely black sand shore. Silence reigns except for the sound of my footsteps, the rising tide, and the wind. I'm surrounded by the contrasting blues and whites of broken icebergs drifting toward the sea. Free. I see a bigger piece of ice, large enough for me to sit. The sun is up. You went to sleep. You couldn't stop me. Life is back to normal in beautiful Iceland again in peace. I win. Fear no more. Okay. Pop this back over to mine so I can actually see what's happening. Be prepared. Okay, so I don't know what's happening, or whose eyes that we're looking through, because I know that Dow, clarify for me, is this the lucid dream, or a different part of the lucid dream, or this was a different one that you were working on? I'm trying to remember. So this sounds like you are in first person present tense. And first person present tense, is not one of my favorites just as a whole. I tried reading The Hunger Games. I actually put it down at about 3 paragraphs in. It's not a format that I have read a lot. I read first person past tense, and I'm more used to that. And I did a very substantial edit for a client who did first person present tense, and it actually worked. It worked out a lot better than I had ever seen done up until that point, or at least it got me into the mode of being able to appreciate it more. Different short, and it's a crime thriller. Okay. So it's first person present tense. The difficulty with first person present tense is that it tends to come off as a narration or a play by play of what is happening. Okay, so this story switches to past tense. It just starts off present because reasons. So here would be my worry about switching, is that switching from whatever tense you're opening with is what somebody is going to expect for the whole book more often than not. If you start off something with first person present tense, someone who doesn't like that is going to put the book down, because they like their own thing. They like first person past tense. They like third person omniscient or multiple POV or what have you. They enjoy that more. So it kind of sets up an expectation that you may or may not want to have as an expectation. Same would be if I was writing a past tense moment in third person, and then the rest of the book is in first person, let's say past tense. It just kind of depends on what your goals are. Here we have some of those shorter sentences that we talked about before. So you have shorter sentences, and you're having to describe the scenery, right? So, for example, I'm surrounded by the contrasting blues and whites of broken icebergs drifting toward the sea. That is a general statement that you are telling the reader what you are surrounded by. This is where it's hard to show from first person present, because you're in that person's head. So you have to describe what it is that they're seeing from their perspective. One way that you could do that is you could do is switching it up. So I look around, and I look around, finding myself surrounded by the contrasting blues and whites of broken icebergs drifting toward the sea. So you're, instead of telling, which is the like I am, it's trying to whatever I just said previously, like because apparently I can't remember. That's more along the lines of what you want to do. You want to describe without telling. So, I look around. That's showing. It's a different style of telling that has a little bit more showing to it. I look around and see the broken the stark contrasts between the blue and the whites in the icebergs that surround me. In the distance, I can see a bigger piece of ice, large enough for me to sit on. What is the purpose there? Why does it matter that they can sit on it? There's a context there that I may, as the reader, may not understand. I don't know if I need to know if that's important, or if it's just a general statement. And the first 3/4 of this makes sense. The last quarter of it switches to something entirely where it goes, the sun is up, you want to sleep. So we have a choppy sentence there that's incomplete. You couldn't stop me, a shorter, again, kind of choppy sentence. So you have two choppy sentences, two short sentences back to back that kind of make it choppy. And then I don't know who it is that is being spoken to, because again, I don't have context, and it could be very intentional that way. But without that context, it's confusing, because you've gone from describing and telling us what's there to suddenly talking to somebody. Is it me as the reader? Is it another character in the world? Is it them looking at themselves in a mirror, or their reflection in the ice? We don't know for sure. And so that it raises confusion. Life is back to normal in beautiful Iceland again, in peace. I win, fear no more. So this last quarter is a little bit choppier, a little bit more fragmented, because they're each standalone sentences. There is no flow to those sentences. So, the sun is up. If you were to say, the sun is up and you went to sleep, you couldn't stop me. Now look around you. Life is back to normal, and beautiful Iceland, is again at peace. I win. And then I don't know the fear no more. I don't know who is being spoken to here. And so without a certain level of context, then as a reader, I'm just going to be confused as to what exactly is happening. I know that at times, now if it's a message to somebody, email, text, handwritten note, whatever, if you italicize this, you can get away with that a little bit more, because sometimes people will write like this. And in a letter, it makes a little bit more sense. If it is dialogue or description, then there has to be a little bit of additional context for what is happening. And again, I mean, it could be just a chunk out of there. It may not even necessarily be the opening. Could be the second or third paragraph down, for all I know. That is probably what I would recommend, is that you get some additional context kind of layered in there, a reason for why the ice is large enough for me to sit, why that matters, because it doesn't seem to line up or make sense with anything else in the sentence, in this paragraph. It seems like a very standalone thing. And free with the ellipsis, and then it goes into that again. There is something there that is missing. So I don't know kind of what it is that is supposed to be happening. Okay, so it is the opening. It is intentional. And oops, my grammar at the end. Oh, that's right. So, I mean, it would be interesting to see how the rest of it kind of comes together. How long is this introduction, Dal? Like, is it several pages, several thousand words? Like, what are we looking at in terms of? Because again, like, I am only basing it off of a very, very small snippet of this. Whew. Oh man. Ugh. Neck is stiff. Yeah, go ahead and send it over to me, and I'll take a look at it, because at least then I can have some additional reference. The main thing that I would say currently, just for the stream, is context. If there's some additional context that we see farther into it, great. If this is kind of where as much context as we get, okay. Short story, 6,500 words. This intro is a couple of paragraphs. First segment of the short, it's dual POV. Okay. Yeah. Send it over to me, and I'll give a brief look over, especially this part in particular. But yeah, some additional context, just based on this, having some additional context in this paragraph, I think would really help kind of clear up some of the confusion that stems from it. Okay. So let me make sure I've not missed anyone. Okay. I think I'm all caught up. So back out of this for a second. All righty then. On to the next one. And, oh, wrong button. There we go. All right, this is for Gwyn. Sweat. It gathered beneath his arms and on his back, staining his black uniform even darker, his clothes sticking to his skin in cold fear. It crept across his forehead, slipping down his nose, splattering onto the floor of the dimly lit elevator. Okay, so let's see here. So I don't know. So starting off with sweat, that's fine. It gathered beneath his arms and on his back, staining his black uniform even darker. His clothes sticking to his skin in cold fear. To me, the staining his black uniform even darker, just in terms of the sentence, I feel like you could remove that. And if you did, it gathered beneath his arms and on his back, his clothes sticking to his skin in cold fear, flows a lot better without the staining his black uniform even darker. And because, I mean, sometimes even if someone's wearing black, it's hard to tell if someone is sweating unless they are sweating profusely, which is entirely possible. But if you removed that second part, the second phrase, there's a better and more consistent flow because you're still talking about his clothes. So on his back, his clothes sticking to his skin in cold fear. So there's that part of it. The second one, and this again stems to the creating variety, the illusion of variety, and having it back to back as the start of your sentence calls attention to itself. I also don't know in what position this person is in, but crept across his forehead. Sweat does not move diagonally, which is what this phrasing conjures. Slipping down his nose, splattering onto the floor of the dimly lit elevator. That all makes sense. If he is laying on the ground in the elevator, that is different. Then you could have it creep across his forehead because it's starting from one end of the brow and moving to the other. However, it would not be going down his nose. So that is the only thing that I could think of there. Is I would change it from it to maybe describing the location first. So laying sprawled out against the door or the wall of the elevator, sweat trickled down his brow, slipping off his nose and splattering onto the floor, splattering onto the floor. So you could do that. Splattering is one of those words that is really unattractive. And I know that it may sound silly, because like, what does it matter to have like an unattractive word? It gives an indication of a bigger splash than maybe it's intending to. I mean, I would maybe just dripping onto the floor. So, or it dripped down his forehead, slipped down his nose and fell to the floor with a splat. There's that. Oh, so the unattractiveness was intentional. Okay. That's different. If it's intentional, that's a little bit different. If you're trying to evoke something very specific there, and you're using the language to reflect that is okay. Sometimes, I mean, I've run into it where I've put in a word and it was not at all what I intended it to mean. And then somebody called it and I was like, oh, huh. Hadn't considered that. So that's probably what my suggestion would be here, is the second of the sentences in the first section taken out, removed, or put elsewhere. To avoid the it again, I would put something different, whether that was an action, him sitting up against the wall, but something that removes the repetition and creates that illusion of variety. Even if you're saying the same thing, if you can create the illusion, then the reader does not have a consistent pattern that they can see and that they can readily kind of pick out. And so that would be the suggestions that I have for that one. Don't really see anything else, especially if locations in the following paragraph, then that can still work. I would probably put it, this is a preference thing, I would probably put it up sooner because it seems to fit. So yeah, that would be the advice for that. Now I want to transition to a something that I've seen done well for an opening paragraph. And I was talking to one of my students about it because it just kind of grabs onto that. Hold on, somebody's spreckening to me. I'm everywhere. Always know that the bard sees all. So this is Stephen R. Lawhead's book, The Paradise War. If you want to write first person, past tense, we have a live submission. Hold on. Look at this, guys. This is all new territory. So I will do that once they send it over. And people are saying, spreading the word that I'm using Lawhead as an example. I know several people who are fans of this book. So if you want to have a really good example of how to do first person done well, and it's not present tense, it is past tense, but it is extremely well done. And so if you want to, whether it's audiobook or reading it, I highly recommend getting this book and really reading the entire series. But here is what makes this opening so great. This is opening paragraph. It all began with an aurochs. So what does that do exactly, and why is it the example that I choose to use? It all began with the aurochs is a great example of starting it off with a question, something that raises a question for the reader. Because I guarantee you there's going to be at least one person or several people out there that goes, what the heck is an aurochs? Why is it here? We don't know, but we should probably find out. And thus we continue to read. Then he goes, we were having breakfast in our rooms at college. Simon was presiding over the table with his accustomed critique of the world as evidenced by the morning paper. Oh, splendid, he sniffed. Looks as if we have been invaded by a pack of freeloading foreign photographers keen on exposing their film, and who knows what else, to the exotic delights of dear old Blighty. Lock up your daughters, Bognor Regnus. European paparazzi are loose in the land. So this is his Lawhead's opening paragraphs. And the fascinating things about them is that we get immediately into the characters. We dig into Simon right off the bat. Then it gets into Lewis, who is the protagonist of the story. And with this, you have the question that is posed by stating it all began with. And in that, you want to create a reader experience. And how you hook them in the first line is incredibly important. Another good example. This is a friend of mine, Verity Buchanan. Hers is very similar to Lawhead's. It starts off, Sandy yawned. It wasn't satisfying, though. How could a yawn be satisfying when one was trying to do it inconspicuously? So it's a very short sentence for the opening. But what it does and what I find so fascinating about it. Oh, see you later. Have fun, Gwen. So what I find fascinating about both of them is that it immediately raises the question of, for the first example, what is an aurochs? How did this whole story start with this? How did it lead to all of what was happening? I don't understand. I'm curious. In that curiosity that you've now piqued in the reader, they want to continue reading. They want to continue moving through. And if you keep tantalizing them, kind of throwing them little bits, little crumbs here and there, it makes it much more interesting. It makes it easier for them to dive in. For the second one, with Sandy yawned, we go, why is Sandy yawning? We don't know. And this is me. There's people out there that are like, this is dumb. I'm not that way, because I am one of the people who enjoy the curiosity aspect of it. I want to know why things are happening. Something is happening or not happening because Sandy is yawning. Some grand adventure is about to take place, but it all began with an aurochs. And I don't know what that is. So I want to know. So if you create in that the illusion of variety. You combine that in, you weave together the story, and you open it up strong, because there's no fireworks, there's no immediate action with either of them. It's not like mine where it says Trinia was running through the city as fast as her legs could take her. I immediately take you and throw you into the action. These don't do that. These simply raise a question in your mind as a reader that you want to follow and discover. So as you write your opening paragraphs, keep those kinds of things in mind. Now, I had a submission here. Let me pull this up. Hold on. Okay. So they sent me a couple of paragraphs, but I'm just going to do one real quick. So let me throw this up into the presentation, and whoops. I am a professional. I have this totally under control. Have no fear. No fear at all. Almost there. Okay, I think I spelled the name right too. Did I? Yep, I did. I'm nailing it today. Look at me go. Okay, back to presenting. Nope. Maybe. There we go. There we go. Okay. See, I've now figured out technology, guys. Look at me go. Okay. So a friend of mine from Discord sent hers in. So here we go. Oh, the air was quiet. Okay. I love it when it says it was quiet and then goes too quiet. I love that. For a spring morning when the meadowlarks and jays should have been singing to their small heart's content. A weight hung on the silence, settling heavily among the rolling knolls and twisted oaks, weighing down the dew-heavy grass and penetrating deeply into the imagination of a young woman traveling the rain-sodden road. Oh, gosh. I can't. Okay. I love this. I love this. So a couple of reasons why I love it. We have some variety, right? We have some weaving. And so we have the air was quiet, too quiet for a spring morning when the meadowlarks and jays should have been singing. I would probably remove small. Just because it when you say it out loud, it just kind of you stumble over it a little bit. I did butcher the last sentence, but please do not judge me. Remember, Bard sees all. Yeah, so I would remove small. I would just have it say singing to their heart's content, or little heart's content. Little heart's content could actually work. So I'd either remove small completely and just have it to their heart's content, or to their little heart's content. That would be mine. A weight hung on the silence, settling heavily among the rolling knolls and twisted oaks, weighing down the dew-heavy grass, and penetrating deeply into. So you guys can see that we've got a smaller sentence to begin with, and then a very long sentence, but there's a flow, there's a rhythm to it that I really, really like. And penetrating deeply into the imagination of a young woman traveling the rain-sodden road back home. Beautiful descriptions. Absolutely beautiful descriptions. And The only critique that I would have would be just removing the small, removing that, adding a little, or just cutting it out completely. And again, this is what I'm talking about, and a great example. Excuse me, my throat is just done. Okay. This is what I'm talking about, and another good example of raising a question. The air was quiet. Why? So second critique, I don't think the air can be quiet. Or there was an air of the air was still, too quiet for a spring morning. You could do something like that. Air itself cannot be quiet. It does not have sound. So if you did the hills, the vale, the dell, the insert location here was quiet, then that makes sense. Air being quiet, not quite so much. But I like what is being played up here. There is a question that is immediately raised of why is it so quiet? And this is something that maybe it's just me. I mean, guys, feel free in the comments to kind of go into kind of what your preferences is. Actually, I would love to know that in the comments while I finish rambling about this. Comment what grabs you in an opening sentence. I'm really curious about what it is that you guys find in an opening sentence that grabs you. For me, it's when you raise a question or imply a question of it was quiet, too quiet. Why? Why is it quiet? What is making all of the birds that should be singing to their little heart's content until they're, filled to bursting like in Shrek? What made it this way? And in doing so, it's penetrating deeply into the imagination of a young woman. So we're getting this sense of that it's seeping into her, this sense of potential foreboding, of this unnatural calm is getting to her a little bit. And I love to see this played out a little bit more. I mean, technically, I have access to at least 3 full paragraphs. You guys only get 1. But yeah, it for me, it raises that question. It brings to life a little bit more of kind of what's happening. Causes me to question. I would continue reading. This grabs me enough to where I would continue reading it because I want to know what happens next. And if you can do something very similar with your guys' writing, similar to The Journey, similar to Lawhead, similar, I mean, a lot of these books actually I could pull out for opening sentences, and most of the ones consistently are going to do something very similar to that. Then you will have engaged the curiosity part of the human mind, and they are more likely to continue reading. I don't want to have just a good opening paragraph, because an opening paragraph by itself, if the rest of it isn't good, does you nothing. If, however, you can write a good opening paragraph and you can drag the reader's eyes down through the rest of the book, specifically through the rest of that page or several pages, what is happening? Basically, you are having somebody invest time into your book. And the more time someone spends in your book, the more likely they are to pick it up and actually buy it. I have no scientific evidence for this. I'm going off of my how I get books. Down here is the Book of Lost Swords. I picked it up, got about 3 sentences in, and I was like, done. It didn't grab me. There wasn't enough there. It didn't pique my interest at all, and I was like, nah, whatever. There's lots of swords in it, and I love swords. They all have fun names. They all do cool things, but it just seemed confusing, and so I immediately dropped it. I'm also geared more towards characters, and I like interesting characters, and I will gravitate towards characters more than I will plot, more often than not, because you can get away with a okay plot if you have really strong characters. I don't even care if it's the same repeated plot that everyone else has done. If you can give me good, solid characters that I can invest in and I can be interested in and that are interesting, I'll read the book. Yeah, most definitely. Okay, let's see. This opening paragraph has me confused. I'm one of those who likes mystery. Okay. So Dal, what part of it was confusing? And then I love that you also like mystery. Heather, I feel like I'm okay. There it is. I had some interruptions earlier and missed parts of what you said. Going to watch the replay as soon as possible. Awesome. So Dal said, I do care if the plot is the same thing that's been done to death. I get bored. That's understandable. Yeah, I definitely can get that. To me, most plots are the same as pretty much every other book out there. It's usually like 1 or 2 tweaks that kind of change it up enough. There are certain ones like the alpha boyfriend in vampire and werewolf novels. That to me is something that is completely overdone. And I don't even read it because it's overdone, and it's just that is literally all the same. It's just copy and pasting stuff, and it's just I can't do it. But a lot of the books that I have that are fantasy based all have to deal with the coming of age, the good overcoming evil, the hero finally finding his place. All of those are pretty much the same. And with that, it's the characters that make that story different. The characters are what makes that story interesting. And if you can take those similar concepts and make it a little different with maybe how you approach the characters or some of the settings and stuff like that, it can change it up. But the main thing is that you can't really get the reader to those points until you've earned the right to sell them your book via the first paragraph, opening lines, and or first chapter. For me, I don't read introductions. Now, I did for Frankenstein because I was curious. However, any other time, I won't read introductions. I won't read the notes from the authors because they're usually all the same, and I have no interest in them. I want to go to the meat of the book. So I'm going to open it up to the first chapter. I'm going to read the first couple paragraphs, and if it sucks me in right away, I'm in. And that can even be if the book ends up being bad, because I can't not finish a book, which is painful sometimes. It hurts. It hurts my soul. There are other times, however, where I'm like, okay, it's interesting, and I might skip a couple of pages first 5 to 10 pages to see if it picks up, to see if anything interesting happens, because it's just starting off real slow. If it does, I will be willing to give it a chance. If it does not, I will probably put that book on the bookshelf. So if you can keep them in the book by answering those questions, layering in that information, and essentially kind of creating what I like to call a bingeable book. Now, people can binge books of all sizes, but very specifically, the chapter length plays a big part of that. It is so important to grab the readers and to promise them something exciting, even if they don't know what it is. Your first few sentences in the whole chapter is the way to do that. So you guys want to focus on trying to do that and really kind of honing it in. Now, that would probably be like once you've actually finished the first draft. Don't go back and fiddle with it until you're done. Once you're done and you know the story that you're going to tell, then you can actually fiddle with it. Okay, so comments. So that's why I have a hard time with fantasy. I do notice the similarity, and I get bored easily. Why everyone has to save the world? Yes, and actually, that is one of the interesting things about the journey, which I mentioned earlier, is because it doesn't actually. And Dal, I think you actually would enjoy this because it does kind of hop around from POVs, but it's family centric. So it's actually focusing in on a group of siblings that actually aren't there to save the world. So they're actually all they want is a home and someone to love them. That's all that they want, which is a very different take on a lot of heroes save the world kind of thing. I totally have that in my book. It's done a little bit differently because I've gifted my hero with the power to destroy the world, and hashtag spoilers, she kind of does. And so it's a very different take on saving the world. But yeah, what you like about Frankenstein is precisely how it jumps all over the place. I have multiple POVs to pay attention to. Some people are able to do that. I can't do that in multiple. If it's in a chapter and there's multiple POV shifts, I have a harder time with that. It's not a style I'm familiar with. I'm more along the lines of a dedicated POV like this in Lawhead or in Dune. It is a chapter specifically around a particular character and what they are doing. They may have scene breaks, but it is a scene break after a considerable length with the other person. And so those, I don't mind multiple POVs. I just have to know why they're there. In some cases. Yeah, Verity says the same thing. Cannot finish a book unless I'm completely bored of them. Yeah, I don't know, because for me, I technically started the Book of Swords, but I chose not to get into it. For me, if I'm a quarter of the way through a book, I'm invested. If I make it through a chapter and I'm done, in my mind, I have not started the book at all. Yeah, the hero who ends up actually destroying the world, or having their version of saving the world, has actually been a lot of fun to write, or at least plan on writing, because I haven't gotten to that book, because technically it doesn't happen fully in this book. But yeah, it is a fun place to do. Yeah, I don't connect to the royals and nobles. Again, for me, it's the characters. The characters were interesting, and I love the political machinations of the plots within plots. You know, assassinations, attempts, and all those kinds of things. I really enjoy that aspect of it. So at this point, I have finished up all of the entries and the example that I wanted to give you guys for, you know, kind of what helps make a good opening that I've seen. Do you guys have any questions that you would like me to address? Let me know, because I'm more than happy to go over that. And while you guys do that, now that I've finished my drink, oh, I'm glad, Dal. I'm glad taking all the notes. And again, like, these are some of the, because I specialize in fantasy and science fiction, as an author and as an editor, those are my primary genres that I enjoy editing, and I have a lot of background knowledge in. Even though I've helped people do nonfiction and a lot of other different genres, I have lots of books that I can pull from. I mean, openings for thrillers and stuff like that. And I probably will eventually kind of work through some of those and even find some that I'm just like, here's what you don't want to do. Here's how you don't want to set up an opening paragraph. Because for me, it just falls flat. Let's see. What you'll say after seeing the rest of the short. Got it. I'm with it. Taking notes earlier. Awesome. Yeah. So on that note, we'll kind of wrap up here real quick. Just so you guys know, like, if you have other things that I may just open this up to, like, a paragraph, just like send me a snippet of your work that maybe you're having trouble with, and I can help you brainstorm it. Because I know a lot of people have had issues with the paragraph because they're like, I only have one sentence, and like, just pick it and I'll work with it. But if you guys want to continue to get feedback on some of your stuff, or the opening lines of your paragraph, opening lines of your book, story, short story, whatever, down in the show notes, you will see a link to the form. The form is there so that way I can track the requests for this, and I can actually set up the posts ahead of time. So that way it looks nice, because I don't want to just copy and paste it into something. Like, I really want to showcase your guys' work as best as I can, in addition to just having it look nice. I want it to look nice for you guys. It's easier to read for me because I can just share it, and then other people can actually see it as well. One sentence paragraphs. I definitely have done that. I've done that a lot in some of my works, specifically my fan fiction. So if you guys have more that you want to do, fill out the form down in the show notes. If you guys want to learn how to write fantasy and kind of start off with the very basics and have a bonus video on how to sketch a map, don't mind me. This is the map that I sketched. It wasn't, I didn't do that for the video. I actually give some different examples in the video, but I actually kind of walk you through how to sketch your own map as well, along with brainstorming, plot, figuring out how to kind of build your fantasy world. the creatures that dwell in it, how to name kingdoms, all those kinds of things. If you guys want to do that, also link down below in the show notes. If you guys want to sign up for my newsletter, I mean, I don't really send out a newsletter. I send out periodic updates on things that I'm doing, YouTube channel, when I'm doing discounts for either the Academy or for my services. Those are usually where it will go out first. So if you want first access to that, then sign up for that. Other than that, I have merch coming. Whether anybody will buy the merch, I have no idea. But you know what? I'm having a ton of fun putting some of the craziness that I've come up with over the last couple of years into a t-shirt that I may eventually buy and wear on a stream because reasons. And I think I technically can technically write it off as a business expense because I'm advertising. So I may do that too. I may just do that. But yeah, I'll have merch. I will be making an announcement of when that's actually available. I'm still kind of playing around with it. I'll figure out some way to get my beard on there because my beard is apparently what is going to sell all of the merch. So I'm not going to complain. My beard is rather magical. Hey, Eva. Welcome to the stream. I was just telling everybody that what's this? Oh wow, it jumped. So there's actually really good reasons why you should do shorter paragraphs or one sentence paragraphs like that. And you want to use them very strategically. This is where my experience as a author and also testing out different theories and concepts on Wattpad has come together into a supernova of brilliance. I might put that on a shirt too. So nobody trademark any of the stuff that I've talked about before I have a chance to put my shirts out there. But essentially, like, you want to very strategically, okay, context. On Wattpad, you have the ability to leave a comment on a paragraph. Or you can highlight a sentence within a paragraph and you can comment on that. Point is, it's on a paragraph. I would build paragraphs so that I would get a very specific reaction and I knew I was going to get comments on it. Usually it was my readers screaming out in tormented agony about what it is that I was doing, or their minds were just like, I had somebody who went and actually read my Frozen one shot after I had mentioned it in the stream on Saturday, and they got all the way down to the end and they literally had to go back and reread the story again because I blew their minds with the plot twist so much. I did that very intentionally. So if you build in those things, the way that I think about it and the way that I build in the paragraphs for the ones that I want comments on is I will strategically build up to that one sentence paragraph and then drop it and then call specific attention to it. So that way I was like, I know that I've built it in such a way that if someone were to comment on that, I know exactly what paragraph they're talking about because I set it up that way very, very intentionally. And it's a lot of fun to do that. Let's see. Making merch. Everybody's making merch because it's so much fun. I mean, it's literally a ton of fun. I got a Stein designed right now that's got oh, you guys have just witnessed mind-blowing creativity right there for stuff that I'm doing. Yeah, it's fun. It is a lot of fun. So Adorkable, the Adorkable author pointed me to Zazzle. So I'm starting to build stuff on Zazzle. And then when I actually get that stuff kind of done and I understand it a little bit more, then I'll start posting links to it. And it'll be t-shirts, mugs, stickers, stuff like that, probably bookmarks. Using Canva Pro for the designing, and Printify is linked to my web hosting package. That's sweet. Dal, you should totally have merch. You should have Alien merch. I think that would be awesome. You already have the images. You're close to having. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I'm not anticipating making millions of dollars off of my merch. I mean, if one person buys a t-shirt and, you know, they go out into the world and they wear the t-shirt and then they get compliments like I get writing compliments on this t-shirt, I will be happy. It's like the equivalent of fan fiction for me. It's like if you wear a shirt that's somehow the editing bard related, I'm just going to feel cool and I'll be able to buy a pizza. Like that's probably what will happen. I probably won't do a live stream of me eating the pizza just because that would be weird. But yeah, I would definitely do that. Awesome, Dal. I will definitely be taking a look at it. Your mom will buy something. Awesome. Then I will definitely let you know when I have that. Or you'll buy something. Even better. Like all of the things. I really have some fun ideas. I bet I could get some of my readers on Wattpad too. Just because I have so many titles that I've been given by my Wattpadding my Wattpadding friends that I think it'd be pretty awesome. So I might have to look into doing that. But yeah. So again, guys, if you want reviews for your stuff, follow the link in the show notes below so that way you can fill out the form. It's just so that way I can track it. I understand that there is a question on there if you would like to be added to my newsletter. You can choose no. I'm not going to be hurt. I won't even be offended by it. Not even a little bit. It is literally so that way if you have questions or if I need to reach out to you, I can do that. You don't get automatically added to a list because I'm not a sleazy salesperson. And if anybody did that to me, I would be pissed. If you are genuinely interested in finding out anything remotely more about me, then you can click yes, and then I can add you to the MailChimp thing. But that's about it. Because yeah, I got a lot more streams in the lineup. I'm actually going to be doing a part of a virtual writing retreat that's being put on in May. And I'm going to be doing I'm going to be actually going through the worksheets that I created, the Getting Your Story Started worksheets. Dal should be familiar with them because she joined the Bards Academy, and these 6 worksheets actually come with the writing course for fantasy. Because a lot of what I have in here is about brainstorming, character development, or not development, character creation. It's just it was inspired by the people on Wattpad. You know, I was working with and helping out and giving a lot of advice out to a lot of the teenagers on there on how they could help make their stories better. And I hate academic style anything. It's usually because it just sounds pompous and they just sound like they're talking to hear their own voices. And a lot of it is just very kind of generic and it's not fun. Writing is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be enjoyable. That's why we write. And so that's why I created these. So that way people could have fun and they could write. They don't take themselves seriously, guys. The 4th of these worksheets is called the plot donut. And I think Dal actually commented on it, saying that she was probably going to blame me for binging on donuts. And I actually had a disclaimer already in there saying that I cannot be blamed for any binging of said donuts that you may encounter as you go through and you read about all of the delicious descriptions on how to build a plot for your story and the differences between just having a plot or having a story and a plot. But I just don't do academic stuff. It just, there's no heart to it. In many cases, not saying in all, but in most, there's just no heart to it. And so this was a project of mine that I really enjoyed doing, and I still have more that I have to write. I actually did a video on world building, the 4 C's of world building. That is of my own creation, and it kind of pulls from a little what I do in here. It is going to be, there's no world building worksheet in this one yet, but I talk about it. It's creatures, culture, creation, and conflict. And I talk about those 4 things because if you can get those 4 things, then, and there's a lot of subgenres in them, then you're going to have a very realistic feeling fantasy setting. Even if you don't use it for fantasy, if you used it for science fiction, you're going to be able to build a much better world that's going to feel much more fleshed out, feel much more real, and much more engaging for the reader. So yeah, that's all the stuff. That's all the fun stuff that I have. If you guys have any questions later on, let me know. You guys know where to find me. I'm either here on Twitter, on Facebook, in a Facebook group somewhere, lurking the reaches of the Netherverse, popping up like a muse for my students, and just bestowing upon them the angst to be able to write and helping other writers. So if you know writers, I'm probably lurking around there somewhere. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in and watching. Again, I appreciate all of your support so much. And Heather, I look forward to seeing the next for another paragraph. Most definitely looking forward to seeing Dal's. Yeah, so you guys have a wonderful rest of your Monday. And I will be planning another time, probably in May, to do another one of these. So thank you guys.